Hello and welcome to another CX Moment. I'm Sarah Reed from Zendesk, and in this broadcast, we chat with companies about what's happening with their business, their support centers, and with their customer experience. This week, we are honored to have Heather Collins from Black Rifle Coffee Company and Daniel Rodriguez from Simplr. We love questions, so ask them in the Q&A and we'll do our best to answer them all. We're going to run a little bit longer than 30 minutes today because we have two fabulous companies that you're going to want to hear from. So keep asking those questions and we'll keep answering them. You'll see a short poll about 5 minutes before the program ends. Please take a moment to share your feedback. We certainly appreciate it. Before we dive into our conversation with Black Rifle Coffee, Daniel is going to share some data from Simplr's recent research on the now customer. So let's take a listen and we'll see you live on the other side.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Let me share so everyone can see this here. All right. Want to give me a thumbs up? We're good? I think so. All right. Thumbs up. Good. All right. So I want to preface this presentation with a bit of a warning. I'm about to serve up some cold, hard truths about CX and the staggering amount of money we're all losing due to customer neglect. We're talking about this not to scare anyone, but because there's been an undeniable shift in CX in the past few years, a shift that's been accelerated by the pandemic for sure. And it's a shift that has profound implications for CX professionals like yourselves, who've been cast as cost center managers for far too long. Before we dive into the discussion of the now customer and what can happen when they're neglected, I want to spend a few minutes talking about how we got into this boat in the first place. I've got to start with a confession. I am so angry that Amazon Prime Now exists. 2 years ago, I was perfectly content in waiting a couple of days for a purchase. And I felt the same way about an email to a company about that pair of shoes I wanted to buy, or a response about a refund for a sock that ripped. But today, I can get the entire package I ordered on my phone in a couple of hours. I'm a spoiled brat who can't wait for anything anymore. I have no patience for brands that can't get back to me with an immediacy that is borderline unfair. Yet that's the now era we live in, and it's taking over customer behavior. And I'm not alone. How can I be so sure? Over the summer, Simplr worked with research firm Sinclair Metrics to mystery shop 790 online brands. And we learned a lot. One of the stats that came out of our research was that customers expect now level responsiveness, even in a pandemic. In fact, almost 3/4 of our mystery shoppers told us that response times are just as important or more important than before the pandemic started. And there are real risks of not delivering responsiveness. 27% told us that their brand loyalty wavered because of high customer service wait times during this pandemic. And if you thought your customers were cutting you some slack in 2020, you were wrong. Our mystery shop research also found that CX is moving too slowly and missing so many opportunities to engage customers in the moment. Average email response time in our study was 48 hours. And even when we isolate companies that earned a high score, email response time was still averaging around 25 hours. Also, we were surprised to find that only 32% of the brands we shopped had live chat enabled. And many that did were simply directing people to a contact form instead of offering authentic engagement with a real person. So many missed opportunities to engage customers to make a sale or to strengthen loyalty. Underlining all of our research is the reality that the now customer is here. And the now customer is always on through chat, messaging, email, and social media. They demand always-on service, they expect omni-channel engagement, and they reward fast response times. Don't let the typewriter fool you. This guy's always connected to Wi-Fi and gets frustrated when a customer service agent doesn't respond to his email within 15 minutes. In fact, Forrester has reported that 53% of US adults are likely to abandon their online purchase if they can't find a quick answer to their question. And not only is that abandoned cart putting a dent in your revenue for that day, it's contributing to a far more troubling trend. $75 billion is lost every year due to poor customer service. And yes, not responding to an inquiry quickly enough is considered poor customer service. Which brings me to cold, hard truth number one. You actually have no idea where you stand with your customers. NPS only measures a fraction of the customers who care enough to tell you what they think. So there's a neglected customer we like to call the negative networker. This is someone who has a negative experience, never bothered to let you know, and is now telling 15 friends and family members. So how much does it cost to neglect a customer who will always go and tell 15 friends about that bad experience? We've calculated that neglecting 1,000 negative networkers results in a loss of $8 million. In this scenario, we're assuming $100 in average annual revenue and for 5 years for this customer and the 15 people they negatively influence. Essentially, this means that you made $100,000 in sales, but missed out on $8 million more. This is not the type of customer you want to neglect. Your risk lies in what you don't know about all the rest. The would-be fans you're neglecting because you're not always there for them. The indifferent or quietly seething customers who never buy again, go to your competitors, or tell their friends and family about their bad experience. Cold hard truth number two. Customer neglect is costing you right now. These are the people who are browsing your site or app during your off hours and were never engaged. These are also people who we like to call tab jumpers, who, if not engaged quickly enough, will get distracted and bounce over to another site. So how much are these would-be customers costing you in missed revenue? Let's assume that 10,000 people visit your site during your quote off hours. Based on our experience at Simplr, about 4,000 of those browsers will open a customer service inquiry. Since you're not there, and we know that the now customer doesn't like to wait, that's potentially $12 million walking straight out your virtual door. If you thought that was sticker shock, brace yourself for hard truth number three. Customer neglect is exponentially costly. Now, here comes this scary scenario. What happens when a neglected customer goes on a social media tear? Let's say that 100 social media users post their discontent with your brand's customer service. Just 100. If each has an average of 750 followers, again, these are just regular old social media users here. That's 75,000 people hearing firsthand how much you stink. We know from Qualtrics data that 94% of those followers base buying decisions on negative reviews. So that could turn into a whopping $35 million in missed revenue gone based on just a single tweet. I hope that you're seeing now that the advantages of an uncompromising now customer experience are obvious. And I just want to say, I'm not sharing these numbers today to make the now customer sound scary. Although I will admit, Veruca Salt is scary. The reality is that CX has been stuck in the cost-oriented mindset born out of the contact center model for so long that we actually have never conceived of anything else. We have lived in a world of forced cost trade-offs that are always trade downs to the now customer. The neglected now customer is a hidden multi-million dollar opportunity. The key is to completely rethink the CX model as a revenue driver, not as a cost center. So why are so many companies struggling? Well, they're held back by the old contact center model, which was never built for the now customer. Let's call it like it is. The contact center model doesn't scale to meet the now customer. It's entrenched in the analog world of phone support, and it's been late to embrace omni-channel digital CX. And there are a lot of risks for the organizations that can't or won't step out of the past and into the now. How do you predict and therefore staff up for a customer that you can't actually see? Let me leave you with 4 takeaways to bring back to your company after this webinar to ensure that you're successful this holiday season and beyond. First, ditch your service hours. The now customer is shopping at all times. Second, be on every channel that your customers use. That means chat, social, and text, not just phone and email. Third, stop frustrating your customers by pushing them to the channel you want them to go to. First response time is a meaningless metric if the customer doesn't actually get their issue resolved. Far too many chatbots create this frustration because they have limited capacity to help. And rapidly responding by telling someone you'll then get back to them in 24 hours for real doesn't cut it. Lastly, embrace the now customer as a revenue driver that leads to higher customer lifetime value. Reject the idea that you just can't service them. They are on your website, they're in your app, they're looking for you on social media, yearning for engagement and ready to spend. Thanks very much for taking that time to hear what I had to say here. Now I'm going to stop sharing and we'll pass it along.
Thanks so much, Daniel. That was very interesting and a little bit scary, but we really appreciate you teeing that up. And a big thanks for the memes. Will you be able to share this presentation to the audience afterwards?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, you hit on some very controversial but necessary topics, which is everything that we're going to start to talk about. But first, I want to see what the audience has to say. So you should see a poll pop up on screen, and please take a moment to answer. Super simple question, but likely not an easy question. Do you believe that you have a broken contact center? And so let us know. And if you want to explain the why, go ahead and put that in the Q&A. And while people are answering that question, Daniel, how exactly do I know if I have a broken contact center model?
Well, in many ways, the question is somewhat misleading, right? Because I actually think that the model itself, right, which is kind of based on staffing predictions, it's based on volume expectations, it's based on guessing and checking and then trying to hopefully get it right. It does not actually scale to meet the now customer. You can spend a ton to try, right? But that is the point of it not scaling. So I think that in many ways, people probably don't necessarily perceive. I'm curious to hear what the poll says, because I think sometimes people probably are thinking, well, gosh, I feel like my contact center is working like it's supposed to.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that that model isn't fundamentally flawed for the era that we live in.
So we have about 43% of the audience says that they believe they have a broken contact center. And some of the things that we're hearing from them is that they believe they're very reactive versus proactive. And then Karina just said, we're broken because we're working hard on out of hours quality responses and engagement. That's an interesting point. So we're gonna dive into a few of these things right now, and I want people also to understand that broken doesn't mean you can't repair it, right? It's for so many of us, the broken side is because we're still doing things the way we always have, and we haven't caught up, to your point, Daniel, for what the customer really wants us to do. So you talked a lot about this now customer, and that the now customer is what's really impacting us and forcing us to change. So, what are those very specific behaviors of a now customer that we should be aware of? How do they behave differently? What identifies them as that?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, feel this myself, right? And I alluded to this earlier, but um, I think that people, and we've seen the data, suggest this through these mystery shop reports that we've done as well. Um, People are willing less and less to wait for the response, right? So part of what I think is a hallmark of the now customer, and I fear in many ways that this is playing out to the point of like the line goes down to zero, meaning like I want to wait 0 minutes for anything. I mean, that sounds somewhat um, you know far-fetched, except for the fact that we already see that if you have to wait more than 30 seconds for somebody to engage with you via chat, a bunch of people leave, right?
Right.
So I mean, that's not a lot of time. I mean, people are basically like going in, and in the time that you could watch one segment of a commercial on TV, someone's like, "Oh, I'm already gone. I'm already leaving. I
I'm
forget you,"
done.
right?
Yep.
That's impatient. That's pretty darn impatient. That's a good hallmark of the now customer. And then also just where they engage. They don't perceive. I mean, I am one, right? I don't want to deny this. I definitely act like a now customer. Um, I think that when I engage with a brand via one channel, whether it's I email, and then I've messaged, and I'm going onto Instagram, I don't think that, like, I have an expectation that follows me, like the information follows me, that everything about that.
So what you're talking about is a true omni-channel experience, which customers don't truly understand. But yes, internally, we need to be creating this experience that the customer isn't the one having to fight to find us, or fight to get the answers or the information to us. We need to be doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So Heather, I'm curious because a lot of what Daniel is talking about is incredibly indicative of the expectation economy, right? The best experience you've ever had is now what you expect from everybody. Does Black Rifle Coffee strive to become one of those brands that others aspire to be?
Absolutely. We are putting it in our mindset and in our mission to basically have our customer experience become part of our product. When I'm personally shopping and looking at reviews online, the first thing I look for is somebody mentioning the customer experience. Even when I'm looking for places on Google Maps, that's something that I will look for. Now with everybody ordering online, nobody's really able to go out and shop. That is 100% something that we predict to be part of the future, even if that future is in the next few months as we're experiencing the holiday season. We are in the mindset that customer service is now part of our product.
I, and I want that to just be like screamed to the world. So if anyone's on social media right now, tweet that out. It's like customer service should be part of the experience. It should be part of the product. That's such a beautiful way of saying it. So you're rooted in customer service, but Black Rifle also has other very core strong values: veteran support, mental health access. How do those values better connect you to the customers that you serve?
Yeah, so As a veteran-centric, veteran-owned, operated company, our mission is to empower veterans, however that may come. As many military families and veteran families know, it's not just the veteran or the military member themselves that needs to be supported, it's the family member. So when we're looking at values, we want to be able to support anybody who might be sharing those same values, but at the same time, we really want to, I'm sorry, I completely lost my spot here.
That's all right. Well,
Repeating the question.
As a veteran home, I want to say a big thank you to you, because that's certainly something that's very, very important to me and to my husband. But I'm curious, when you're selecting partners, partners like Simplr, and we'll get into that relationship in a moment, but when you're selecting partners, I expect that you want them to share the same values, or at least uphold yours. How do you even figure that out when you're out looking for a partner ecosystem?
The first step that we usually take is contacting our Zendesk account manager and success manager to see what kind of recommendations they have. They are pretty knowledgeable in different partners that especially integrate well with their system. But then the second step is just having those conversations, looking into the first step of the introduction, and after getting into the functional details, have those conversations. Who are you hiring to support that back end function? Why is that important to you? And how do you see that being beneficial for us? How does that benefit us and help us get to our goal or our mission?
And Daniel, if I were to ask you that question in just a slightly different way, how do you keep Simplr's values at the core when you're taking into consideration the partners, the companies, the brands that you want to work with? I would expect that not everyone that comes to you shares the same values as Simplr. So how do you bridge that?
Yeah, I mean, we have, first of all, we have our own kind of company values that we strive for, and that we kind of live as an ethos. But when we look at what we're trying to do in the market, it's all about eradicating the neglect of the now customer. I mean, that is our mission. That is the reason that we exist. We're fortunate enough in a way that actually, with Black Rifle Coffee, it's great. I want to give a shout out to all the folks who work on our team that are part of military families, because we actually employ quite a few military spouses. That allows our own partners, we call our customers partners, that allows our partners to have the 24/7 live support that they need, because our military spouses are on US military bases stationed around the world. That's a tough gig, right? It's a real tough gig to be a military spouse, because you are at the whim of where your partner is getting shipped off to every couple of years. And to be able to then have a consistent form of work that can take you from Guam to Germany to Hawaii to, if you're lucky, to Hawaii, in any time zone. It's something that we hear from people, that they are so grateful that they're able to have that type of flexibility in their schedule. And we're of course incredibly grateful for both the service, as well as what they do for our partners' customers.
And you all have been doing that for quite some time, but that's also now a model that we're seeing really get amplified during COVID, is that ability to work from anywhere at any time, which is, there's not a lot of positives, but that is certainly one of the big ones. Well, so you were talking about neglecting the now customer, and that one of the core values of Simplr is eradicating that. And I'm curious, Heather, did you feel like at any point in time that you were neglecting your now customers?
Oh yeah. Over the last we've had a few different spikes recently. First, The most recent was with COVID when everybody went home, but then previously was holiday season 2019. There were some customers that had to wait up to 10 days for a response because of various situations. And when we see that happen, and we finally get to those new inquiries that don't have much to do with like resolution and more sales focused, we find that we completely missed that opportunity and we gave them a bad first impression.
And how are you even, so we're going to talk about metrics here for a second, because how did you even determine that they were being neglected? So obviously backlog is one factor. Were you also seeing it in CSAT? Were you seeing it in repeat customer? Were you seeing it in customer effort score? Like, what were the metrics that you were using to say, ooh, we're neglecting some people here, we've got to fix this?
Our number one indicator is CSAT. So when we see that it's lowering, we'll go into the back end of Zendesk and see what they're saying, why they rated their interaction bad. We can use the tools there to identify, was it the timing? Was it the experience you had? Was it the information that you got, was it not correct? So CSAT is our first indicator, absolutely. I'm sure that our analysts have some metrics on just conversion over the site. I'm sure that has a direct correlation with that as well.
So let's pop up the second poll that we have, because I'm curious what people think will be the most important CX metric over the next 3 years. So knowing how quickly stuff is changing right now, what do you think is that most important CX metric? And one of them on here that we're asking about is repeat purchase rate. And Daniel, I'm curious, like we had a pretty extensive conversation a couple of days ago around this. Why is repeat purchase rate now a metric that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, quite simply, repeat purchase rate is a behavior that you can measure with revenue. CSAT, while it's, I think, qualitative in the sense that you can say, well, somebody was happy, it gives kind of, I think, an emotional barometer to how you have done. It's not really telling your CEO what they care about, which is, are we driving revenue as a business, right? And I think that in many ways, I was talking to an executive who works at a large shoe company recently, and he was saying, well, the way that COVID has impacted our business, which has both brick and mortar and online retail. Now that all the brick and mortar has been closed, the not trillion, but the billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar question for this brand is, will people stick around that are making these online purchases because the online channel is up because of the deflection just from, not deflection, people now can't go in the store, so they're going online. Right. But then what happens afterwards? Do people stay there? And repeat purchase rate becomes the way that you can tell. And the battleground in many ways for, are we actually doing a great job with our customers, has rapidly shifted to what is happening with the digital experience during this period of time, which, with the vaccine news that we've had, fortunately looks like will come to an end sometime. But we're kind of not going to miss out on a full year of data that we're going to get with this, including holiday season. So I like to think that, in many ways that metric is one that you can't fake, but fake in the sense that it's just about revenue. And I think it also lends itself to CX professionals being able to call themselves revenue drivers rather than being relegated to being referred to as a cost center.
And now you're hitting on a sweet spot, right? Which is every contact center everywhere at some point has been talked about as a cost center. And we have, I think, made really phenomenal progress over the last few years of turning that tide where companies are seeing their contact centers much more as, as an opportunity to build that loyalty, to get those repeat purchases in, to really, as Heather talked about, support is part of your product. It should be something that people talk about as with a glint in their eye, right? It's like, I had this incredible, experience, and now that makes me want to buy more. So that poll came and gone, but what we saw was that repeat purchase rate was certainly something that people believe will be something we have to pay attention to, as well as CSAT and NPS and customer effort score. So none of these are going away, but that purchase rate is definitely triggering some interest. If anyone is currently measuring that, drop it in the Q&A and tell us exactly like how you're doing it. And, has it made a difference for you in the C-suite? Because that's certainly something that I believe we're all interested in. Now, Heather, going back to you for a second, how the relationship you have with Simplr, they take some of the burden off of your own people in your own contact center. How have they really helped you in expanding out your support to your customers?
It was a multi-step system. So when we initially brought them on, it was mostly backing up email. So they would take care of our sales, get ahead of those opportunities, and really introduce efficiency and just direction to our customers whenever they need it, so that we can get those sales. But now, recently this year, we have really opened our platform up. So now we are able to offer chat 24/7. And that is it, with the help of another partner as well. So our Ada chatbot actually offers scheduling. The chatbot is a scary term, especially in this conversation, but it's a very conversational bot that you can escalate to a human at any time. But with Simplr's help with chat, we can have our team handle the replacement orders, the gritty stuff during the day, sales more at night, and then during the day as well with emails, we can take care of any of those that are getting closer to that 1-2 hour mark, so that we can make sure that we're getting back to the customer as fast as we possibly can, backing up our team, making sure that we're still supporting all systems across the board, but ultimately allowing our team of specialists on the Black Rifle side to handle the stuff that nobody else really wants to handle.
That no one else wants to handle, or maybe just they know it best, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's, one of the core benefits of a partnership like this, is so that your team can support the customers with those really challenging or really tricky things that, unless you are in it all day, every day, you might just not know all those little nuances. But Daniel, we also had a conversation that Simplr is not a BPO, right? It's not the traditional form of a BPO, even though it may sound to the untrained or ear that that's what you do. But what's the difference?
Yeah, I think the difference really lies in our distributed model of people, right? So, and then we're able to, because of our technology, right? So we are a tech-enabled services company. We've got this great network of people. They're able to respond on brand to whether it's Black Rifle or another partner, and they can use our technology to make sure that they have the right information. They're able to respond in the way that is, again, on brand, having the right tone. We're able to kind of shed all of this. There's so much planning, and I mean, if anyone's kind of in this world, and this is an audience that knows what I'm talking about here, like you have to go through with this kind of traditional BPO model. You have to make predictions about how much you need them. There's going to be contracts that are going to dictate, if you have to go below or above, and you still end up with backlogs. It's like, it's so frustrating, right? And so what we've done is we've come to the market, I think, in a fundamental way that's really blowing up the model, right? We like to think of ourselves as very much like an anti-BPO, because you just can't scale to meet the now customer with that model. I think that last thing I'll just say about us is, we have resolution-based pricing, which aligns the incentive perfectly, right? Because you want to get the issue resolved. You don't just want someone to respond quickly or just kind of throwing warm bodies at problems, or you don't want to try to pretend like when you're going to need 500 extra people because Justin Bieber just so happened to tweet about what you were doing, and you've got a ton of inquiry, and you're missing out on those revenue opportunities. Like, our solution can handle those things, and as Heather's talking about, we kind of handle a good chunk of what people are doing, but it is fluctuating. Things fluctuate for people all the time. So we feel really excited about being able to bring a model that I think is really a win-win-win, for everybody that's involved.
And it's interesting because a lot of what you're talking about is that workforce management challenge that many of us face in the contact center. And I was with a group of contact center professionals a couple of days ago, and we were talking about workforce and why WFM is even more challenging now than it ever has, because all of our predictive models and all of our historical info from years ago don't apply to 2020, because we've had all these different factors that have come into play that have thrown all that predictiveness out the window. And now, as we're faced with 2021, we really can't look at 2020 as indicative of what the next year will be. So we're all undergoing some workforce challenges and concerns right now. So finding those ways where you can adapt to the aggressive movements and the unplanned volume is very, very important right now, and really comes down to what we were talking about earlier, that importance of partnership. And Heather, I know you all are going into a busy season. It's the holidays are coming, and you just came off of, what I understand, the busiest day that you've ever had in Black Rifle Coffee history. Is that correct?
The third busiest. So we are expecting
The
to
third busiest.
that in
Okay.
the coming weeks. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so now how? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're good.
Well, and how are you now preparing for what could potentially be the fourth busiest, or could be the busiest day of the year?
I think we're going to top it. I think we're going to have our busiest day. We're preparing. We have been hiring since probably August, preparing for this. A few different things that we are really ramping up are just the containment. I wouldn't call it deflection, but more self-service. Making sure that our customers have the different options. So if they don't want to talk to somebody, we want them to have the ability to help themselves. If they want to have the ability to talk to somebody, they have the information that they need to make that contact right away. So we'll have chat available, we'll have our phone number accessible, and our email easy to get through. But then also making sure that our staffing is able to fluctuate from channel to channel so that we can support wherever is needed. So if we experience more volume in one section, we'll kick a few people over there to support that channel, just to make sure that everybody is taken care of across the board and we're not leaving anybody hanging. We want them to have the answers to the questions that they have, so that we don't have that abandoned cart. We want to see that conversion rate, the satisfaction rate, be higher than ever. So not only are we expecting and preparing for the busiest day in history, we want it to be the most successful across all department boards, across customer service, supply chain, fulfillment. It's a team effort to make sure that that really happens.
And alongside your partners, it sounds like you are very prepared to do that. Last question for you, Heather, before we have to say goodbye, is what's one Zendesk tip or trick that you want to share with the audience today?
Oh man, I think the most recent thing that has become very, very helpful for our team is the play mode, where it just distributes tickets evenly across the team. When we are caught up like this and able to answer those questions, and we have everybody just ready to fire, get on those tickets, it can create some anxiety about making sure that you are doing enough. So the round robin play feature has really been a big hit for us lately, especially in the last few weeks.
And it keeps you and your agents from over prioritizing one queue or one channel versus the other. And to your point, then all customers get that equal support no matter what channel they want to come into.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I have to say thank you, both Heather and Daniel. This has been a delight, and thank you for everyone who's been listening. We appreciate all of you for sharing a moment with us. And next time on a CX Moment, we're going to talk with the CEO of Cloudbeds about their Hospitality Helps program. In the meantime, please stay connected with us and the rest of our Zendesk community. Be safe, be helpful, and we'll chat with all of you again soon. Thank you, everybody.